Muted.
Thank you everyone for joining this NAPA webinar on how paving companies benefit from a unified software platform. My name is Nancy Lawler and I'm NAPA's Vice President for Special Events and Education. Before we begin, I would like to mention the technical support number shown at the bottom of the slide in red. If you are experiencing any difficulties, please dial 855-352-9002 and the Go to Training support team will assist you. Now let's go over a couple of housekeeping items. After we've started the webinar, your screen may look like this. At the top right corner of your screen, you will see a small menu, which is now enlarged so you may see it better. The important icon for this meeting is the arrow in the orange box at the top. This will expand or shrink the menu choices. After you click on the arrow, your screen should look like this with an expanded menu of options. There are two areas that are important. The first is the audio settings. If you have any problems with the audio, you may wish to change your settings. The best sound quality will be either a USB headset or a telephone. If you use the telephone, please make sure you enter the audio pin. The second is the chat. This is how you will submit questions for our speaker. Before submitting a question, click on the box shown here and select Organizer Only. You can submit your questions at any time, but they will be answered at the end of the presentation. I will read the questions for Paul to answer. Enter your questions in the chat box area here. At the conclusion of this webinar, and once you sign out of Go to Training, a post-event survey will appear on your web browser screen. This is a short survey that will help us improve future NAPA webinars. Please take a few moments to complete the survey and provide us with your comments and feedback. Professional development hours are available for this webinar. Please print out your registration confirmation that you received as evidence of your attendance. Our speaker today is Paul McEwen. He is the founder of B2W. Having an extensive background in the construction industry, Paul plays a major role in the success and direction of the product and is involved in all aspects of the company's daily operations. Now I'll turn it over to Paul.
Okay. Are we able to get the other screens to go away, or stay with us for one moment? Okay, great. So I'm going to make the assumption, hopefully, that everybody can hear me. Thank you very much for joining this afternoon. I'm looking forward to giving you this presentation around how an operational platform can benefit your business. The overarching theme here really today is how you can use technology such as an operational platform to drive the profitability of your company. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the software approaches, a little bit about the evolution of software in the construction space, mobile opportunities and challenges, evaluating some of the current options, and then we'll dive into a little more detail relating to the workflow that's covered by an operational platform, which really spans everything from estimating, scheduling, field tracking, maintenance, and information management and analysis. So, driving profitability, vital role for your software. So, the growth potential in the space obviously is around infrastructure demand. It's no secret that America's highways and roads are in desperate need of repair, so there's a tremendous opportunity for growth. The commercial market in general is strong across the country. Software investment drivers for companies in the construction space would certainly be competition. The days of doing things with spreadsheets and pieces of paper have really become obsolete. There's a lot more margin pressure in the space, so folks really need to use and leverage technology to drive efficiency and profitability. Certainly compliance. There's a lot of complexity and risk management and employee expectations. I think today, younger folks coming into companies are really looking for and expect to have a certain technology stack to be able to do their job more efficiently. So the opportunity in an operational platform is to drive efficiency, to do things more quickly with a greater degree of accuracy, more visibility across the platform in terms of what's going on collectively in the operations piece of the business. Collaboration where everybody's on the same page at the same time, no silos of information. And obviously business intelligence, being able to get analytics and information that helps you make more informed, more timely decisions to drive your business. So obviously the history of performing operations in a construction space is pretty simple. It wasn't probably that long ago that we were using manual processes. That obviously grew from manual processes into the DOS world, which is frankly where my first experience came. It went over to the Windows world, which I think was a greater opportunity for folks to start to develop software with more standards in terms of the user interface and probably a greater degree certainly of ease of use and simplicity. I think the problem, however, was that this is a point where folks began to buy, or competitive companies would be building silos of information or independent applications that run different aspects of the workflow that I'm going to speak about here momentarily. The advent of certainly the internet and the browser has opened up a lot of opportunity for folks as well. And mobile, I think, really is a tremendous benefit for the construction space. It does open up the door for, again, supporting things like efficiency, collaboration, and is a much more appropriate way to be able to collect and gather information than we were doing not too long ago on a laptop. So again, I think that the mobile stack, whether it's tablets or smartphones, it really is a game changer for the paving space and the construction industry more broadly. I think it really is more of a disruptive technology, something that is really changing the way companies can run their business much more effectively.
Okay, Paul, we put up the polling question here. It looks like a lot of people are coming in with it. I think we're pretty much close to everybody answering, it looks like. So we're going to post that. I don't know if you get to see that. The answer is that we got about 29% of the people said phone, 14% tablets, nobody on laptops. Well, 42% said all of the above, and 14% said none of the above. So it sort of is like you were saying, the phone is really being used a lot, but other people are using that or all of them. Is that what you expected?
I would say so, but certainly if you look at what's expected in the future in terms of folks using smartphones and tablets, that's definitely the direction people are going. Tablets, or I should say, pardon me, laptops in the construction space, I think are going to become a thing of the past and not in the not too distant future. The advent of having a device that's always on, the ability to take pictures, the ability to use Siri, and the vast capability of a tablet and or a smartphone is really, I think, going to displace laptops here as we move forward. Okay. So as we talk about the tablet or mobile technology, I think what's important to understand, and this is where the divide kind of comes in terms of the difference between a series of disparate systems and a true unified platform. And that is, if you're using different applications for different parts of your operation in your business, where does the data go? So I think really what's critical is, how are you able to manage all of the operational data that may be collected throughout the organization using tablets and phones? And I'll touch more on that in a moment. Okay. So I think one of the things that's important about leveraging tablets and leveraging smartphones is, going back to the point I made a moment ago, you really want to be able to have, in my view, a single tablet or mobile application that supports a broad range of functions in your organization. So it could be a tablet that's used for something like collecting production and time and equipment in the field. It could be the same application based on permissions that supports somebody like a mechanic in the field that's going out and performing work orders, and so forth and so on. So a single application, one user interface is much more efficient, much more accurate, creates greater access across the organization, and it creates a much better platform for collaboration. So the options that have been available traditionally would be, we've kind of morphed, I think, in the industry from legacy systems like spreadsheets. Obviously, a lot of difficulty with spreadsheets, although I think we all, in years gone by, have fell in love with spreadsheets generally to be able to run parts of our business. The issues with that are obviously pretty apparent. There's no multi-user capability. They're not designed for any specific function. There's no way to really report off the information and so forth and so on. So the evolution from there really went to a bunch of disparate modules. So a whole bunch of different products that you would use across your operations, whether it's estimating or field tracking, equipment maintenance and so forth. The problem there is that you're trying to manage the same information across a broad range of products. So trying to keep all the data consistent in terms of the employees, the equipment, the jobs, and so forth becomes, the deeper you get into a broad range of disparate modules, pretty much virtually impossible. And as a result, they're really not enterprise class and really don't provide the kind of scalability that companies need. So that leads us to the operations platform. So that really is the ability for everybody to be working off the same data set, the same pool of employees, the same pool of jobs, equipment, and so forth, so that everyone is really on the same page at the same time. The other option, of course, is that there are many accounting providers that do have some level of operational capability. But I think in the general sense, folks have found that accounting software companies that try to dip their toe in the operations pond generally do it from an accounting perspective, and they don't create a broad enough workflow or deep enough modules to really be able to satisfy the needs of companies today. So,
okay, Paul, we're putting up your other poll. Give people a chance. So what software platform are you currently using to manage your operations?
Sure.
And so we've got that up there, spreadsheet, just these ones that you have mentioned. So we got people responding to it. Oh, it's changing rapidly as we speak here. Okay, we're getting a few changes in here.
Sure.
Okay, I think we're ready to post it here. And it looks like a mix of disparate systems. That's about 50% of most, 47%. And a unified operations platform, got 33 there. But people are still using the spreadsheets, the accounting systems, and some say none of the above. Still manual. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but it seems like a lot of people are still in the disparate systems.
Sure. Well, I think that's probably true. I mean, I think that it's only more recently that a unified operations platform has truly been available. So it is the evolution of, I think, where the space is going. And I think it certainly reflects where people want to be. I think anyone in the poll that's using disparate systems fully appreciates that trying to manage the same type of information across a broad range of products is virtually impossible. Keeping the list of employees, equipment, jobs, and so forth consistent across multiple applications is challenging at the least, perhaps impossible. So moving on to the operations platform. Really, the operations platform today is more of an ERP platform for operations versus the financial ERP. So you would look at it almost in two different ways. An ERP for operations is really a solution that is going to drive the profitability of your business. Financial ERPs are really more engaged in the measurement of the operation than they are in terms of driving efficiency and profitability. So I think the core tenets of an operations platform should include a broad workflow that covers things from estimating, dispatching and scheduling, field tracking, equipment maintenance, and information management, what I'll speak in more detail about towards the end. And I do think that the core here is that you're able to share the same information across the platform. So really sharing all the information from a single, in this case, SQL database. So that really talks about, or leads us to, what is different between disparate systems and a unified platform. And it really comes down to the notion of the difference between integrated versus unified. So integration is obviously trying to get 2 different systems or 3 different systems or 5 disparate systems, trying to kind of move the information across those different systems and make them consistent. Very difficult, perhaps impossible to do, whereas unified speaks to folks using the same data across the entire workflow. So it really all starts with the estimate. And so essentially you need to be able to have a tool for the paving space, certainly, and for the heavy civil construction space more generally. The ability to support both private and public work, the ability to do things like electronic bidding for the DOT. So if you're pulling in a 200 line item bid, 25 items of which may be paving related, you'd want to be able to leverage the history and standard templates of work for those particular items. Some of the unique complexities for paving is the detail of working on items where you may have night paving and day paving in the same item, multiple crews, multiple production, managing trucking, managing subs and vendors, managing mix designs, having a very robust bid closing capability that addresses everything from the nuance of DOT work, where you may have to have percentages of DBE. You may need to be able to have a particular item like mobilization that cannot exceed a certain percentage of the bid and so forth. So these tools have to be very specific and support requirements of paving companies such as the ones I'm sure we have on today. Go back.
Okay, we've got another one of your polls here. We're asking, what are you currently using for estimating? So we got the different things there. So how are people estimating there? So it's still going here. It looks like others and spreadsheets are leading the pack right now. Other is 43%, 36% on spreadsheets, and 21% on B2W. So
great.
Estimates. So gives us a little estimate there. Okay.
Terrific. So the next piece here in terms of estimating would be the ability to do, as I mentioned, very robust bid closing capabilities, distributing indirects across a range of items and so forth and so on. On the private side, flexible bid forms. So you need to be able to have the flexibility as a paving contractor to support a bid form that could be unit price, could be lump sum, could be grouped by type of work, could be grouped by phase. The ability to have notes that might tie to additional equipment rental on a private job, renting a grader, sweeper, perhaps asphalt handwork that might need to be done, or even asphalt escalation on a private bid form. So having that level of flexibility and capability for paving companies is really critical. If we move over to the kind of the scheduling workflow. So I think one thing that's really important about scheduling as it relates to paving is being able to schedule work based on production targets. So for example, if you're doing work on a DOT project and you're working on phase code 9000, bituminous asphalt by the ton, you probably would want to be able to select which crew is going to go to a job and manage the movement of the equipment. But you'd want to be able to tell the foreman that there's an expectation that you're going to install, for example, 2,000 tons in a 9-hour shift. And be able to analyze over time all the times you went to that job and worked on phase code 9000. What was the expectation of the production target, and what did you achieve? So again, production targets as a tenet of scheduling for paving companies I think is important. Historical performance, as I mentioned, what have we done in the past? And I think real-time visibility, folks in the field able to see the schedule, able to see the trucking, able to see the equipment moves and so forth. So it's managing also, I think, real-world complexities, in this case for paving companies. If you're going to schedule a crew to go to do work on a job, it would be important to understand what is the capacity of the asphalt plant you intend to draw the tonnage from, not just in terms of your own work, but if there's any other FOB customers coming in on that same day, are you able to support the production that you need for the work? Crew requirements. If you were looking at next week, for example, is there an opening for a hand crew? Is there a need for a machine paving crew? So having that kind of visibility is important. Supporting the equipment moves, supporting all the nuance of trucking, having trucks come to an asphalt plant, in 10-minute delays, starting at 6 in the morning, 6:10, 6:20. All the nuance of being able to schedule the trucking for paving companies is critical. And also allowing folks both from a tablet and a smartphone to submit a need. So if you're a paving foreman and you realize that tomorrow you need an extra 5-ton roller on a project, you'd want to be able to use a tablet or a smartphone to key that in and instantly have the folks that are doing the scheduling understand that requirement. Field tracking, moving off to tracking production and actually tracking the job cost metrics on the job. So the ability to do or to set up a field log that captures today's production, labor, equipment, subs, and trucking that could be initiated through the schedule. So in other words, whatever's on the schedule becomes what's on the field log for the foreman automatically. The ability to do things like look at actual versus targeted production. As I mentioned, if it's phase code 9000 and there's an expectation to do 2,000 tons, you'd want that to be visible right up front. On private work, if you're tracking production, for example, by the ton, but you're working on a pay item that's by the square yard, you probably would want to be able to have the foreman understand that if you're doing a 2-inch lift of asphalt, what was the theoretical yield versus the actual quantity that you used, and have that instant feedback. Employee sign-offs on daily time, whether that's done on the tablet that the foreman may have in his hand, or kind of more bring your own device if you wanted to have your employees download the ability to sign for their time. A lot of states, as you know, require that, California being one. So the ability to have them answer a series of questions along with signing for their time. Did you have a daily safety talk, and so forth and so on. And then obviously the ability for folks in the field to see job level reports and dashboards and so forth. So as I mentioned, I think it's important that folks have the ability to submit requests from the field so they can actually indicate if they have a need for additional equipment, additional labor resources. If you're going to do handwork tomorrow and the work tomorrow, you've learned that today the work's going a little bit more slowly. You need another laborer, the ability to put that into a tablet or a smartphone and have it visible to the folks that are managing the schedule. And I think the other thing that's important about that as well is leveraging from a smartphone or a tablet the ability to take a photo, take a video, get a GPS stamp, even where were you when you created this needs request, and certainly leveraging something like Siri for speech recognition and converting speech to text if you want to get into a longer description. So then as we get into talking about equipment maintenance, obviously it's vital that you keep the equipment up and running. It's an enormous cost, obviously, for companies. Most companies will spend between 5% being best in class of their annual revenue on managing their maintenance and repair of their fleet. Many companies will spend much more than that. So a tool such as an equipment module is going to help save a tremendous amount of money if it's used correctly. So the ability here to do something like not just a needs request as a foreman on a job, but also a request for a repair to a piece of equipment. So the ability to pull up a piece of equipment, see if somebody else has indicated, maybe on this 10-ton roller, I realize that there's a slight dent in one of the drums. I want to see if someone else reported that for this particular roller. If they have not, the ability to put a request in that, again, is instantly visible to the folks in the shop, and even take a picture to be able to show the folks in the shop what's wrong with the equipment. So in terms of maintenance and repair, it's vital that you have a comprehensive equipment database that can store all the information, including manuals, show the history, so forth and so on. A very advanced preventative maintenance engine. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance for paving companies around when PM might be done. And while it might be done by odometer or engine hour, it could also be done by tonnage of asphalt. If you're running a paver, you obviously realize that every so many tons, every 5,000 tons, you may have to replace the screed. So you'd want to be able to have that be a metric you could use for PM. Nested coding, the ability to code work order items in terms of the component code, subcomponent code, and so forth, and have it relevant to the particular item of work you're doing is vital. That's going to drive all your KPIs and your metrics. Warranty tracking, parts, inventory, purchase order system, and obviously at the end of the day, data analysis and KPIs is really a vital tool for making sure that you're driving maximum uptime of your equipment fleet. And from that, you want to be able to have your folks, again, in terms of leveraging mobile technology, your mechanics able to go out into the field to do a work order, to be able to complete the work order, enter in their time. If they spent time on something other than the items on the work order, be able to enter that. So the ability, again, to leverage this mobile technology to let folks do their work in the field. The next piece is, and this is, I think, really become increasingly important for construction companies, and that is the ability beyond the more standard workflow that I just went through to have tools or a tool that allows them to collect all of the other operational data that you have to run your operation, whether that's a safety form that you fill out, an equipment inspection form that you fill out. I've traveled all over North America. I see companies that fill out dozens and in many cases hundreds of different forms, mostly on paper, sometimes in a spreadsheet. And that information is basically not being able to be leveraged to make much better decisions. So that data is trapped on paper. It's unstructured and very difficult to find. It's often inaccurate, out of date, and inaccessible to the field. So the ability to have a tool that allows you to create very robust forms where you can essentially capture any information that you want, signatures, GPS time and date stamping, perhaps create a form that folks will use in the field that has other documentation associated with it that you want them to review and have available when they're filling out forms. So very rich data forms, the ability to make sure that you're using data on those forms that's available in the platform. So for example, if you have a form and on the form you want someone to pick from a list of employees or a list of equipment, it obviously needs to be the equipment in the platform. It can't be people typing in an employee's name or typing in an equipment number. So again, leveraging the data on the platform, the ability to have a very robust workflow to be able to have forms approved hierarchically. So if a form is going to be completed but needs to be approved, you can do that. And I think, again, the key thing is to be able to publish these forms and have folks able to fill these forms out on a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone, and all of that information is then available for very, very rich reporting and dashboards and so forth and so on. I think another big part of that in a platform would be an event-driven.
Okay, we could go ahead and do another poll here.
Another poll, okay.
Which type of dynamic forms would benefit you the most? So, please fill that out for us. Let's see if we got people, they're being a little slow here. Oh,
here we go.
There's one. Okay. Well, that's one I actually would expect to be in there pretty big, too. So far, safety meeting is the stuff that's biggest, fuel. There's other in there, and audits and inspections. So it's tracking pretty good with 60%, about 60% safety meeting. It was what they're looking. The next most popular is fuel tracking and deliveries, and then audits and inspections, and then just general other. They'd like to have some other forms available. So
sure.
So the safety is what I would expect.
Oh, absolutely. And I think safety is probably the most obvious aspect of the business you would use it for. But if you take the time to think about what are all the other forms we fill out, whether it's job forms, forms at the plant, forms at the quarry, forms in the office, the ability to create those forms and put them in the appropriate bucket. These are forms that only get filled out by folks at the quarry. These are forms that only get filled out by folks at the plant. These are forms that get filled out for people that are doing paving work or grading work. the ability to have all the forms indexed by job. So if you do a large DOT project, you'd like to be able to have all those forms available easily for that specific job. So additionally, as forms are filled out, some of the things that would be critical in terms of maximizing efficiency is, imagine filling out a safety form, for example, and when someone picks injury as the type of incident, you open up a second form. You may have a second injury form that needs to be completed, or you may have certain folks in the organization that in the event that there is an injury, you would like them to be emailed and or texted to let you know that that took place. So all of that information, all of that functionality happening as the tool gets used creates this visibility and awareness and collaboration. So at the end of the day, the key thing is leveraging a tool that's going to manage these forms is a broad range of different types of forms that people would fill out. I've seen it all. I've seen some companies that think there are 10, and I've seen companies that think that there's 200. So when you think through the value of that and the reporting and the metrics and data that you have available by completing those forms, it's a very powerful tool with tremendous ROI. So I think sitting on top of this entire thing is the ability to use a very powerful reporting engine to create dashboards, create reports on your own, and to do even business intelligence that would allow you to create dashboards and reports that may include information from multiple products. So for example, if you wanted to have a report that included information from a platform like ours, but also information from a plant software, and perhaps even information from your accounting software, a tool that has business intelligence capability that would allow you to do that is really a tremendous benefit. And all of that really allows you to do data-driven analytics and do much more timely, much better decision making. So that is the end of my presentation. So if we want to open it up to questions, certainly glad to do that. And you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, if anyone would like to additionally email me questions at my email address, I'd be happy to respond to that as well.
All right, everyone. Now, we've been taking your questions on this, so if you can please use the chat box there, submit your questions to us, and well, I'll read them out to Paul so he can answer them there. There you go. Paul, it sounds like you got to get in, you guys need to get in with the DOTs and get them to integrate all their systems too there. So,
sure.
Okay. So we're going to go here. Let's see here. Sorry. We're having a little. Everybody's going to be able to see the questions. No questions yet. I cannot believe anybody didn't have a question. With this, I guess maybe some of this, it seems to make sense there too. Does it require any special software on the other side or knowledge level of somebody at a company in using something like this?
That's a great question. So I think what you really want to make sure of is that when you're going to deploy something like this, that you're using enterprise class technology. So it should be, standard enterprise SQL Server type technology, Microsoft.NET, whether it's browser-based or Windows form. So you want to make sure you're using a more modern technology stack. But the answer to your question is no. There would be nothing that would be unusual in terms of having an IT department stand up a platform of this type.
Yeah. Come on, no questions?
Well, that either speaks to
here we go.
Here we go.
Are you seeing software companies being able to create such comprehensive platforms completely internally, or are they typically partnering with vendors to bring all the functionality together?
Well, I think what I've seen in the industry is that trying to join multiple technologies together to do this is very complex. So, for example, companies today that may, for example, be doing acquisitions, trying to bolt on tools that have a workflow that they want to be able to cover, what makes it complex is you're dealing with a different technological architecture in the software, maybe a different technology stack. You're dealing with a different user interface. So it becomes very, very difficult to take a multitude of tools and try to make them work together, which goes back to my whole point of integrated versus unified. In a perfect world, having a single platform with the same user interface, regardless of which aspect of the workflow you're working on, scheduling or equipment maintenance and so forth, and everyone leveraging and using the same data at the same time is the optimal way to go. So although we do see companies trying to do it by partnering with other vendors, that doesn't appear to be going well for many, if any.
Okay. So do most of these integrated platforms also include accounting and payroll software?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that I think that the market has really come to the conclusion, as you look at a lot of accounting software companies, it's no secret that in the construction space there's a lot of money flowing in, there's a lot of acquisitions and so forth and so on. And there's a general, I think, inclination for accounting software companies to be the one-stop shop. The reality is that doesn't really work well. And so my view is that there is an operational ERP that supports a workflow around operations, and that there is a financial ERP, and those two things are different. There's obviously a need for those two things to integrate, to share information that's important between the two, but our software does not, for example, include accounting, and our focus is expressly the operations piece.
Okay, I think you answered one of our questions, the third one down I got, or the last one I got, but how much typically should, say, heavy highway firms spend on IT, data collection, reporting? Basically, a percent of the revenues, how much should that be, I guess, that IT or something like this?
Well, a lot of people would answer that different ways. The reality is that it really depends on a whole number of items. So the number of people within each department of the business and so forth and so on. Certainly, if you were to stand up an entire platform for a larger construction company, you would be probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to cover the entire workflow. So there are times when people will kind of do it maybe a little bit incrementally, where they might start with part of the workflow and then add on additional pieces to the workflow as they move along. But I often tell people that it's not an expense, it's an investment. So it's like investing in the stock market. If you've done well, you want to put $1 in and get $25 back. So the ROI on tools of this type is very demonstrable and very significant.
Okay. Well, this one's sort of interesting because I was just at a ConExpo meeting, and so what are your thoughts on implementing telematics data from paving and milling operations into software platforms, tracking programs, analyzing yields, comparing actual quantities to estimates and quantities? And I'm going to add something too there. We're starting to see people using the drones, and there's
Sure.
a lot of data that drones are giving them. I mean, could some of this be integrated into these platforms?
Absolutely. So speaking of telematics, for example, so I hope I didn't create the impression that we wouldn't use data from other vendors, because we would. And I'll give you a perfect example relating to telematics. So our platform, for example, has complete telematics integration, and we address it from an agnostic approach. We don't have a proprietary tool for GPS. So we can read data from Caterpillar, John Deere, Komatsu, Zonar, any product that collects telematic information on your equipment and exposes the data, which nearly all will, in the AEMP standard file format, through which there are about 14 different data points that are covered. So we have the ability behind the scenes to go get that information at a timed interval during the day, every hour, twice a day, midnight, whatever that might be. Now that's obviously critical, because most of the time preventative maintenance, for example, is driven by engine hours. So you need to make sure that you can get the engine hours from a telematics tool. Obviously, if you have a piece of equipment that doesn't have telematics on it, there's the ability in a platform to enter in the engine hours in many different places in the workflow, whether you're a foreman, whether you're creating a repair request, a need request, working on a piece of equipment, you can always capture engine hours manually. But leveraging telematics is critical. There are several tools in the market that I think are really gaining some speed. For example, Fleet Watcher is doing a great job. We have a broad range of customers that are using their tool, and we're able to leverage their information and take information from a GPS perspective, make sure, for example, if you're going out to a job to fix a piece of equipment, that you can validate that the equipment from a GPS perspective is actually on the job. So using telematics data from other third parties is critical. We do it well. And I think tracking information in terms of, I think you mentioned progress, yields, and so forth, we do that well in addition. And those are really the vital things you need to be able to do to more efficiently, more accurately run your business.
Okay, well, that looks like it's all of our questions. Paul, thank you. I also want to point out, everybody, when you send off, you will get a survey will pop up. We appreciate it if you would fill that out, because it does, let us know how we're doing. Let us know what other webinars you would like us to see. I hope you are enjoying that we are offering these free to our NAPA members. And if you're not a NAPA member, another benefit that you can get by joining NAPA. And so we got a number of other webinars coming up. So just go to asphaltpavement.org/webinars and you can find those. So with that, thank you very much, and have happy holidays.